This video will show you how to replace the rear sealed wheel bearing on a Cadillac CTS. This will be located behind your rear wheel. Let's get into it. Let's get ready to remove our rear wheel. To do this, the first thing we have to do is safely raise and support the rear of the vehicle so the wheel's off the ground. Now, once you've done that, remove all 5 of your 19mm lug nuts so we can get the wheel off of here. Just a quick note about doing this job, once it's done, you will need a 4-wheel alignment. Now that we have the wheel out of place, the next thing we have to do is remove our 36mm axle nut. After removing the axle nut, we need to use a hammer and a punch. The punch is going to go directly in the center of the axle. Now we're going to tap on this. We're attempting to drive the axle in, breaking it free from the wheel bearing. Once you have some movement, we'll continue on. Okay, I could see that move. Let's continue on with the removal of our brake caliper next. To remove the caliper, the first thing we want to do is push back our caliper piston. To do this, it's easiest using a small pry bar. I'm going in and through the slot on the caliper. Now I'm going to carefully pry up against my brake pad, pulling the caliper outward. Once you have movement like this, let's continue along the inboard side for our 2 caliper bracket mounting bolts. So now as we make our way along the back side of the caliper, we're looking for these 2 18mm headed mounting bolts. As we start removing them, you're going to find that the upper mounting bolt is considerably longer than the first. I'm going to fully remove the first mounting bolt up here, just give it a quick inspection. I like to leave it in a couple threads, and I'll continue on to the lower mounting bolts next. That next one down here. Now I'm holding onto the caliper. I'm going to fully remove that first mounting bolt, and we'll hang this aside, putting no pressure on our flex hose. With that out of place, let's remove our brake rotor next. To remove the brake rotor, you might find that you have one mounting screw. Our application does not have a mounting screw. You want to make sure that you remove that, then you can remove that brake rotor. Slide that out of place. Of course, a quick inspection of the brakes here. This looks good. We'll clean it up before installation. Along the rearward upper corner, we have our ABS wheel speed sensor connector. We're going to dislodge it from its mounting bracket first. There's a small locking tab here. Just carefully pull out on that. We should be able to slide this out. Once you have it slid out of position, we're going to disconnect our electrical connector. We can see the locking tab. Gently pry out on that. You can do that by hand. Once you have it disconnected, a quick inspection for corrosion on both ends. If you see any, it needs to be taken care of, especially on the side, which is part of the wiring harness of the vehicle. This looks good. Let's set it aside. So now let's make our way where the caliper was located. Looking down in here, we can see a 21mm mounting nut. This is for the upper ball joint. We have to remove this so we can gain access to the hardware holding the wheel bearing in place. Now ours is a little rusted. I'm just going to use a wire brush, attempt to clean up some of the threads, and I'll use some penetrant as well. Now we can use our 21mm. I have it on an extension. Now I'm going to start this back on here, just a couple threads. Continuing on, we need to separate the upper ball joint from the rear knuckle. To do this, I'm going to be using an air hammer. I'm going to hit up against the mounting nut here. The tool that I'm using will not cause any damage. You want to be extremely careful not to cause any damage to the upper ball joint, unless of course you plan on replacing it. Now I can remove that mounting nut and the washer. Now I'll just use a pry bar. I want to try to pry this up enough that I can gain access in this area. That looks good. In the same area that we were just at, I had pointed out there's a wheel bearing bolt here. This is the first one that we're going to attempt to start removing. Use an 18 millimeter. You will find that it's very close to the axle here. Okay, now we do have movement from this mounting bolt. You should not have to fully remove it. You're going to find that the axle will restrict this from fully leaving the area. Let's continue on to the next two. Those will be located on the opposite side of the knuckle. And the next one I'm going to attempt to get is down along the bottom area. Now in this area you can see two mounting bolts. We see one out in the open. This is not the one that we're attempting to remove. Make your way forward for this one right here. Just using a short extension with my 18 millimeter. Okay, that bolt is fully loosened as well. Now it's on to the last mounting bolt, just up along the top rear. Now as far as the third mounting bolt, it's just above our parking brake cable bracket. 18 millimeter. At this point, we've removed everything holding the bearing in place, but you may find that it's still stuck to the knuckle. Obviously, we need to remove this. To remove this, you can use a bearing removal tool. You could also use a hammer. If you do use a hammer, you want to be extremely careful not to cause any damage to anything else that's near the hub. So I'm just going to use this tool. As far as this is concerned, I'm going to go over two of my lug studs, install my lug nuts, and then the driver will go up against one of the ears where my caliper would be. Once I start breaking this free from one side, I'll spin it over to the other side and I'll be pressing up against my steering knuckle in this area. Now I'll start applying some pressure on this. I'm attempting to start pulling this out and away from the knuckle. We'll just use some penetrant in there. Let's go ahead and release pressure. We'll make our way down to the next area and we'll continue on this removal process. Start applying pressure here. We can see that this is separating perfectly. Okay. Now I'm just going to remove my tool and I'll continue on with a hammer. Sliding this out. As we slide it out, we still have our ABS wheel speed sensor wire and the connector that goes up through this slot. Pivot the axle as necessary so you can remove that. There it is, friend. Prior to installing any brand new part, let's make sure we clean and inspect the mounting area. We're going to clean inside of the circular area and all along the base. This is where the bearing's going to sit. It has to be a clean mating surface. You can use a wire brush, some sandpaper, or even a scraper if necessary. On my application, I can see that there's a lot of corrosion. After cleaning all of that, just a quick inspection on a few other things. We want to make sure that our parking brake shoe is in good usable order. If it looks like it's worn or damaged in some way, you're going to want to replace it, and now's a perfect time to do so. Aside from that, clean and inspect your axle, along where the splines are and the threaded portion. And then of course we do still have a couple mounting bolts still left in place, and I have one that I had removed. We want to make sure each of these is clean and reusable as well. After cleaning, before I install my new bearing, I like to use some anti-seize. I'll go directly inside of this circular diameter here. You don't need very much. This will just help make it so it does not get seized in place again in the future. Now it's time for installation of the brand new wheel bearing. Before we get this in place, have a look along the back side. We do have this one plastic portion. This is for shipping to ensure that nothing gets damaged. Now we can get this in position. When we go to slide this in, we want to make sure that we have our ABS wheel speed sensor electrical wiring harness and connector facing up towards the rearward side diagonally. You know where that bracket is. So as we start bringing this into position, we'll be starting with the electrical connector. That's going to slide in between the axle and the hub. Go ahead and flex that as necessary. Okay, I see my wiring coming through. Now we need to make sure that our axle goes through the center of the bearing. As we continue on pressing this up into the position that it needs to be in, we're trying to align our mounting bolt ports, and we want to make sure it's as flush as possible. Once you feel as though you have it in the proper position, we want to make sure we hold it so it does not fall, and we'll continue on along the inboard side for our 3 mounting bolts. As far as our mounting bolts, we'll make sure that we start each of them in by hand. We can snug them up. Once they're all started in and snugged, we're going to torque them to 92 foot-pounds. Let's make our way down to the bottom bolt. This one's a little harder to gain access to. Okay, that one started in. Let's get that last one started. They're all started in. Now I'm going to snug them up and then torque them to 92 foot-pounds. There's that one. This last one up here. Now it's time for our ABS wire electrical connector. start with the wiring harness, line it up, press it in, listen for a click from that. Give it a tug, make sure it's secured in place. You don't want this coming loose while you're driving down the road. Now let's make sure that we secure it onto the bracket. Line it up, slide it all the way on as far as possible. Make sure that's secured as well. Now to align the upper ball joint stud with the mounting port, you may find you have to apply upward pressure underneath the system here. So I just have a small jack. I'm going to start lifting this up. Once the stud comes through where I need it to be, we'll continue on with that mounting nut. As far as the mounting nut, I have my nut and my washer. Start that on there. Now as we tighten our upper ball joint mounting nut, the torque for this is only 15 foot-pounds, but once you torque it to 15 foot-pounds, you need to turn it an additional 210 degrees. I got my torque wrench here. There we are. Just double check, make sure everything's secured here, and we'll continue on to removing pressure from under our lower control arm. We'll start removing pressure from under the rear suspension. Now we can apply some anti-seize along the wheel bearing hub mating surface. On some applications, you will have a mounting bolt. I always like to have some anti-seize inside of that port. We'll just make our way all the way around this entire hub. Now let's have a look at what would be the inboard side of our brake rotor. Of course, we do want to make sure the braking surfaces are in good condition, but we also need to make sure the hub mating surface is in good condition. Go ahead and remove any miscellaneous debris from any of these areas. Now we can get that brake rotor in place. If you were installing your mounting bolt, there is a port on the brake rotor. Make sure it aligns with the port on the hub. We'll slide that into place. At this point, you can install that mounting bolt, assuming you have one. Otherwise, make sure that you use a lug nut so this rotor does not fall off while we continue on. Just start that on there. Let's install that brake caliper. We have our two brake pads spread apart so we can slide them over the brake rotor. Let's continue on along the back side for our two mounting bolts. As you remember, the upper bolt is considerably longer than the lower. So we've got the longer bolt. Start that through. We'll get it aligned, start it in by hand. Now I'm going to start in the lower bolt. After that, I'll snug them up and then torque each of these to 88 foot-pounds. And let's remove our lug nut. It's time to install our axle nut. When we go to install the axle nut, you never want to use an impact tool. This needs to be done by hand so you do not cause damage to the bearing. Now that I have that bottomed out, I have the vehicle closer to the ground. I'm going to be torquing this axle nut to 118 foot-pounds. When I go to tighten this, you may find that it wants to spin on you. To help prevent that, I like to use a pry bar across my lug studs. Obviously, we don't want to cause any damage. That will prevent this from turning. Let's go ahead and torque this. Now, one last quick inspection in this area and we can reinstall our wheel. We'll get the wheel in place. Start on all 5 of your 19mm lug nuts. Bottom them out, get the wheel safely on the ground, and then torque each of them to 100 foot-pounds. Now I've got the wheel back on the ground, let's torque these lug nuts to that 100 foot-pounds in a crisscross manner. Torqued. Okay, we finished the installation of our vehicle's rear wheel bearing. At this point, you want to make sure you pump up your brake pedal till it feels nice and firm. Take your vehicle for a road test, listen for any odd noises, make sure you have no ABS light, and get yourself in alignment. Thanks for watching.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.